This is the smallest, weakest coalition the United States has had in a war in the Middle East in decades. In the Gulf War, in Afghanistan after 9/11, even in Iraq, the United States has entered those conflicts with a wall of allied forces behind them. There have been formal coalitions, NATO missions, partners willing to send their own troops to fight and lose their lives alongside Americans. This time in the war with Iran, it's basically the United States and one other country on the front lines, while other allies have publicly chosen to sit on the sidelines or very narrowly limit their participation. Now, this didn't happen all of a sudden because people suddenly got shy about war. This is the result of a very deliberate posture by this administration in the way they've treated their allies. There have been tariffs, threats to annex Greenland, open hostility towards NATO, and a broader posture of treating long term relationships as conditional. So now, in the event where it really does pay to have friends, Washington is confronting a very different reality that those relationships are no longer operating in the way they once did. For most of the post Cold War era, when the United States entered into war, it didn't enter in it alone. Whether that was through UN backed coalition, NATO after 9/11, or even the coalition of the willing in Iraq. And that created a sort of expectation or even muscle memory that with US military action would come legal foundation, diplomatic groundwork, and visible allied participation. Now, contrast that to where we are today. After months of tariffs, threats towards Greenland, publicly attacking NATO, and talks regarding economic pressure towards allied states, the United States and close partners are escalating things in Iran and coming to find that almost nobody is willing to step into that framework with them. There's a political hesitancy, but there's also a legal hesitancy as well. Under the UN Charter and under many of the allies' own constitutional structures, one cannot simply join the use of force just because it's asked to. There needs to be a lawful basis, either self defense, collective defense, or authorization from the Security Council. And when it comes to collective defense, each country needs to make that determination for itself. It needs to assess whether the underlying use of force meets the legal standard, whether there was an armed attack, whether the response was necessary and proportionate, and whether participation can be justified under international law. So when the United States asks its allies to join in, it's not simply asking for their support. It's asking those allies to adopt its legal justification for this war. And when that justification is unclear or contested or politically costly, declining participation becomes the more defensible position. And at the same time, Europe's strategic focus is elsewhere, right? Europe's main security project right now is Ukraine. Weapons, funding, training, and more of a push towards strategic autonomy, one that doesn't require relying on Washington entirely. And the result of all this creates a very specific type of isolation, not necessarily one where the United States is withdrawing from the world, but a world that is adjusting to a United States that is less predictable, more transactional, and harder to align with in moments of crisis. If the United States continues to stretch the rules governing use of force while straining the alliances that make collective action possible, it becomes much easier, both legally and politically, for those countries to stay on the sidelines. So then the question becomes, not necessarily will the United States remain powerful, but rather what that power looks like in a world where partners are becoming more cautious, more independent, and more willing to say no to the US. And if that does become the question, then the US may have to relearn how to use law and diplomacy to rebuild those coalitions it once took for granted.